chatting and have to push like 5 billion other buttons here. Doesn't make sense.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have one of my good brothers here in the temple, the man who eternally laughs at the Leafs, the man who is still laughing at Nia Jax for making one of the greatest fuck-ups we've seen in the last month. Good brother Matty J, who is currently AFK. Sorry for rhyming. And it is February 13th, Saturday the 13th, 2021. It is the day before Valentine's Day. Another year, another failed attempt at killing Cupid. Because I want Cupid dead for the crime of offering me chocolate twice. And it'll be high time to get into this, because this will certainly be the first time in a while that this has been done. We've certainly got a stacked amount. Not a whole lot of video game news this week. A lot of the news that I ended up getting that was relevant to our interests was mostly tabletop news, a bit of anime news, and a few surprises when it came to things that I never thought I would see. So, without any further ado, let's get started with the Kickstarter spotlight. And the first one we have, unfortunately, is a unsuccessful one. Mythic Prelude, which had a demo, and it looks like they didn't get a whole lot. They were hoping to get 17,000 Canadian. They ended it at 3.7 thousand. And I did talk about it with a few others, and the vibe that it has is very much Alundra meets Terranigma. And all the way from Cape Breton, Canada. So I can definitely see the vibes that it's going for. I'm always hesitant about platforming in this kind of perspective, largely because I've had a lot of bad history with missing shots. But at least there's a level of self-awareness when it comes to black pushing puzzles be mandatory. And if I had to guess as to why this one didn't work out, on one hand, there's no shortage of SNES era throwback games. On the other hand, I think the despite all the gifts, I think the description was a little bit light. It would be my guess. It's unsurprising, since this was creator Dimitri Lowell's first Kickstarter. But I think the problem is that it came off like a glorified trailer, and you need a lot more than just that. But let me see if he had some comments as far as the end of the campaign, saying, "Hey friends, well, we ran a nice campaign, didn't we? I'm happy that so many people want to see Mythic Prelude come to life just from seeing gameplay and playing the demo. The end of this campaign isn't the end of Mythic Prelude. Knowing that so many people want and have their eyes on something I want to fully create inspires me more than anything ever has. And I have so many of you to thank for being the inspiration I'll pull from within from now on. So there will be several announcements I'm making. 1. Steam release. Mythic Prelude's demo will be released on Steam as Mythic Prelude Concept Demo. This is for archiving purposes, so people can continue to play and experience the free demo. A date hasn't been set for its Steam release, but it'll be announced at the moment it's available for download. 2. Future of Mythic Prelude as a whole. Mythic Prelude is a project I've been writing, planning, and working on for nearly 2 years after I chose to become a game developer. I don't intend on it being cancelled just because the campaign hasn't met its goal. Everyone I have worked with around Mythic Prelude's demos invested enough so that when the time comes to begin making the full title, it's mostly a matter of assembling everyone again and paying them. Fear not, friends. If you can forgive the nature of the cliche statement that succeeds this one, this is just another beginning. So he's not giving up on the project. So that's good to know at the very least. And he may consider relaunching the campaign if there's enough demand. I hope he either does relaunch or find another way to get it out in the open. Maybe working with, I don't know, Tiny Build or something. But we will most certainly see. So next, and full disclosure, I did have the guy behind this one on the show earlier in the week. Zodiac War, which is a astrology and tarot themed board game, currently had a goal of 18,000 and is currently at 36.4 thousand with 6 days to go. And the interesting
My hole!
There you are, Maddie.
Hey, sorry about that, folks. I had to take a combination Nia Jackson Cupid. Nia Jax for the joke I just made, and Cupid because he keeps sending you chocolate and he keeps messing you with a goddamn arrow.
Well, he tried to shoot me with an arrow once. I shot back.
So that explains why his shoulder has a hole in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So we're currently on Zodiac War.
I heard everything. Yeah, I heard. I've by the way, the Cape Breton guys, I feel bad for them. That sounded so good. They'll be back though. You said yourself they'll be back.
Yeah. But when it comes to this particular board that they have, an interesting thing that I ended up discovering during the research is that the rotating game board, it's not just the whole thing that rotates; it rotates on separate discs. And apparently, this was a tricky thing to implement. Since the idea is, you align the board in order to get the tokens known as faith. And once you have 10 faith, you can purchase a star crystal. Whoever gets, I think, 3 star crystals first is the winner. Everybody picks a sign, and that sign is associated with a planet and an element. And you can the wild card during every round is the effect of the tarot cards, and after that you can play zodiac cards to either. Oh, sorry, I had that mixed up. The zodiac cards are the wild card that happens at the start of a turn, and after that people play up to 3 tarot cards to either give themselves faith, or rotate the board, or make somebody lose it. And depending on the sign that you have, the zodiac card may put in extra effects. Because the 3 wheels that you have, the first one is the element. The second one is the signs, and the third one is the planets. And the interesting thing about it is that each of the tarot cards has 3 symbols for their effects. This is why there's the rule of only being able to play 3, because the first one that you play, you do the first effect listed. The second one that you play, you do the second, and the third one the third. So order is important. And the thing is, you don't gain tarot cards like you would drawing cards in, say, Magic. You do have to spend faith in order to get them. he did put up a bit of a demonstration. Um, and like I said, I've had the creator Paul Starr on the show, so I was able to get his take on a lot of stuff. And that's why I point out that he had mentioned that that trying to get all three parts to be able to rotate individually without one dragging the other was tricky to do. And what I do find astonishing is some of the art that he was able to get, because he's got some damn good artists working on this.
It looks gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
actually.
Now, as far as the release window, he doesn't see this thing. He doesn't see a release window until late in the year. Sim- Especially given that the thing that's probably going to be the trickiest to get printed is going to be the game board. The other stuff that would be relatively easy to get manufactured. Also, some people may be raising an eyebrow given the fact that the location listed on the Kickstarter is Tampa, but that's just where he happens to live currently. He's from the UK, which allowed me to make a few jokes about Man United, and he's one of the rare cases where somebody would get it. But hey, at least I didn't throw a pizza at him. Although seriously, why would you throw a pizza in a fight? That's a waste of a good pizza. Even
Well,
stadium pizza.
stadium pizza, yeah, you're wasting your money on that, but there is such a thing as shitty pizza. I mean, Papa John's is liable to be a weapon.
Yeah.
And actually, who froze a pizza? Who froze a pizza? Maybe not a fully cooked one, but need I remind you of the supermarket brawl from 2002? When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. Flack.
Yeah, that is definitely a fair point. I do remember
It may
watching.
not be cooked; it's frozen and stiff, which is what it was for Booker T.
I will admit that seeing Secret Base talk about that in their That's Weird series, which is a really good series, I should note. Um, the gr- one of the people who was involved with it when they were getting the skinny on the Arsenal versus Man United rivalry, and said, "I think I'm going to side with Arsenal. They seem like winners." And everyone in the comments is like, "Oh, you sweet, sweet child. You have no idea."
You poor bastard.
It's like you had the people going, if only you had half of the comments going, if only she knew, and the other half going, should we tell her?
Shh. Let her get disappointed on her own.
But I get the feeling that this is probably going to get to 37K before it's done. And I do hope that somebody gets it and puts it up on either Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. Although if they do that, best of luck trying to emulate the board, because I could see that being tricky. Now imagine trying to emulate the rotating disc on Stargate.
Good luck with that.
And you can do it on a mini, and we've seen it, and yes, I want that thing. But so next we have Light Unto Another World, a by Yakov Merkin, who's doing his own spin on isekai in not in novel form. This is going to be this is for 5 volumes. He was asking for 3,500. He's at 4.7 thousand with 4 days to go. Not too shabby. This isn't his first rodeo when it comes to this kind of thing. He's previously written the Galaxy Ascendant series, which he had funded several of the books on Kickstarter. And the approach that he seems to be going with Light Unto Another World is a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces ends up getting transported into another world, and he still has his gun. So obviously not using it the whole time, because you've only got so many bullets.
Mm-hmm.
But just the idea that you have a full on soldier getting isekai'd instead of the usual affair. And fortunately, this is one case where he did not get isekai'd by a truck. And in a lot of ways, it feels like he's trying to do the opposite of a lot of the isekai tropes, because the protagonist in this case, Uriel Makis, is, well, he has a very soldier's mindset.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, Truck-kun was, like you said, Truck-kun was not involved. He was taking care of something else.
No, he was just head. Truck-kun unfortunately couldn't get past immigration.
Truck-kun got broke down.
Mm-hmm. And something else that's brought up is the fact that he is a religious man, but it's not overbearing. I'd say he's a religious man in the same way that Solomon Kane is a Puritan. You know, it's a factor.
Yeah.
It's a factor into his backstory, but it's not a defining factor. And I know it's not going to get at this level, but he says if we could get rocketed up to 10,000, that he would commit to commissioning a first chapter of a manga adaptation of the series. With him being hands-on with the project, and given the artwork that he has commissioned for the project, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit too late for me to bump in, but I get the feeling I'm gonna have to give this guy a call, because given how we did a whole episode called "How Not to Isekai," I'm curious his take on that particular genre.
Yeah, I could see that.
So next, now in full disclosure, 1, I've backed this, as you can see, and 2, I had the developers on the show long before they even launched their Kickstarter, when it was just a RPG that was making the rounds on my feeds. The Way of Wrath, a story-driven open-world TRPG in a prehistoric shamanistic world inspired by Baldur's Gate, Gothic, and The Legend of Zelda. This is their first project from Animal Studios, and they come to us all the way from Georgia. No, not that Georgia, the other one.
Not the made in Georgia people, the country of Georgia.
Mm-hmm. And the the other thing that they admitted was an influence was the Divinity games, but they're going for a pre Bronze Age approach, a more primal in the approach, as well as I think it's pretty clear with their visual stylings here. If, and especially since there's one of the conceits that they told me about with the game is that there's an enemy that is coming, and you have a certain number of days to prepare for them, and you can prepare all you, and that enemy is what's going to amount to the final battle in the game's story. It's just a matter of, are you going to survive that battle, or are you going to get curb stomped? But obviously given the wintry setup, this definitely appeals to me, because because of where you and I live, Maddie.
Yup.
um, Although I should note, as a bit of an aside from Xanatrix, I have been laughing at some of the people I know down in Texas who have been getting their first blast of what we deal with every year.
Oh my God, Shin Tiger Curl. They was not happy. It was like I kept going. Welcome to our world.
In fact,
and anyone in Texas going through that stuff right now, do not complain. You guys get warmer weather than we do.
I remember a buddy of mine complaining when the weather went down to 40 back in October, and I'm like, do you want me to laugh at you? Because I will.
Because that is that is how you get laughed at. Yes.
Mm-hmm. While I was dealing with weather in the teens, and you're complaining about it getting into the 40s.
And bitches, please.
And I know some people are like, well, they probably aren't used to it. It's like, I don't care how many times do we have to hear people from the southern end of the continent laughing at us for staying in the climates that we do. Every fucking time.
Yep.
So
eat shit, motherfuckers.
In fact, one person got mad at me because I had posted it, because I had done a rare thing and posted a Simpsons meme with the whole now you know how it feels. But so yeah, they're planning on putting the Way of Wrath on PC, on Mac, Linux, Xbone, PlayStation, and Switch. I get the feeling, because this more or less happens, the first SKU that they're going to focus on is PC, largely because of the fact that, to be quite honest, this sort of game is one that's always going to lean more heavily towards PC. That's just I'm not making any judgments. This isn't me going PC master race. That's just how it is. The CRPGs, your Baldur's Gate and your Gothic style games are always going to lean heavily towards PC. That's just how it is.
Yep.
That's not to say that it can't be done on console these days, but, well, I'll put it like this: when's the last time you saw a good RTS on a console?
Never.
Closest I can come up with is Halo Wars.
Yeah.
And that was almost a decade ago. Plus that was designed with consoles in mind, and by a studio who actually knew what they were doing when it came to RTSs. In the same vein, if somebody wanted to play a 4X game like, say, Civilization, what SKU do you think they're going to be playing it on? Because I know that there is a Switch port of Civilization, but
Hmm.
do you honestly see anybody playing seriously playing Civilization on the Switch?
I mean, there might be one or two suckers in there, but not it. Not it.
Mm. Although I and Doku and Doku's like release Total War on Game Boy. Absolutely not. So let's see.
Goku, get your ass in here.
I think he's eating.
Uh,
Um,
uh,
apparently the Switch port is one of their stretch goals. If they get to 45,000 euro, then they'll do that. Um, they're also if they get to 35,000, they're going to be adding in real-time combat with pause. So you can choose between whether you're going to go traditional turn-based or real-time with pause. Real-time with pause, an example of that would be, say, Dragon Age.
oh, okay, okay.
Whereas the approach that they're taking right now is a tactical RPG, more akin to FF Tactics or I was gonna say Fire Emblem, but you don't have to deal with bullshit weapon durability in the same way. It's not the only one that's doing this kind of thing. You recall that a while back we talked about Scarlet Republics, which is doing it in a similar fashion. Just instead of going with the primal past, they're going with more Renaissance era.
Okay.
But yeah, they're heavily inspired by Bronze Age history as well as more nomadic and tribal cultures. Um, and something that I do find interesting is this comment. One thing we want to do is avoid the common trope of fictional settings where everything cool already happened in the ancient past. We are building a young and unexplored world, full of the unknown, shrouded in dark mystery, and hinting of bright promise, where exploration has a sense of discovery, not of huge, dusty tomes of lore. You'll play the influential figures in the history of the world, explorers, war chiefs, kings, inventors, or priests whose actions will shape the future. You'll be there for each major event and discovery, shaping it with your actions. That's an interesting approach to it, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely it's something different.
Mm-hmm. So then we have the Thayan tribes, and we have let's see. Then we have Nuria, who I look at her and I keep thinking, one, is she one of Bayonetta's ancestors, and two, don't you fucking hex me. Let's see. Then we have Araka, who's very much going to be the I think he's going to be our B-beg for this, especially with that pseudo armor that he has. Although I gotta say I do like that that they've gone out of their way to make sure that any sort of use of metal is kept to a minimum. I mean, with Old Bear here, he's definitely got a nice sword, but that's a sword made from what looks like obsidian or a similar kind of stone. And Hairball, where have you been? He's accepted his gimmick for a long time.
What gimmick? What gimmick?
Um,
A
Do-
gimmick?
Do- Doku's latent gay gimmick.
Oh, he's accepted that for what, years now?
Yeah. And yeah, as you can see with the combat setup, and I did ask them if Divinity was one of their inspirations, and they basically said yeah. Um, what I am, it does look like they're going to be having a skill system. I'm hoping that it's a bit more freeform than a straight up skill tree, but we'll see. Um, and apparently there is going to be weapon durability with one exception. If you can find iron and bronze metal, then you can use that. You can use them for equipment that won't wear out as easily. The key word is if. But it does seem that crafting and hunting and then going out to kick asses and do quests is going to be the central gameplay loop. And hey, this will probably be a case of a crafting system that doesn't piss me off. And then we have the whole thing with the fort. And yeah, I think you can see why I decided to back this. I see a lot of potential with the Way of Wrath. And apparently one of the backer tiers is being able to convert your pet into an in-game pet.
No, really.
It's not a tier that I can afford because it would be 219 euros. I'm not paying that much.
Oh yeah, no. But if someone, if someone has a husky and has that money to blow, that husky's gonna bite some things off.
Mm-hmm. Of course, at 500 euros, somebody could have their face in the game. But I do hope that they don't end up biting more than they can chew. And apparently they are doing a case of extra things that they'll be doing with the community based on how much reach they get on Facebook, on Twitter, Discord, and Kickstarter backers. So they already did a community. They already did the whole thing of a community pet. So if they get 9 points total on this, then they'll do a weapon, 12 points, a character, and 15 points a quest. Let's see, and then we have the team proper. When I see Dato, and for the record, both Dato and Sandro were the two on my show. I look at him and why do I get the feeling is that Braun Strowman's little brother? Also, I think he's holding up that trophy specifically so people don't see what his shirt says. 'Cause I might be wrong, but I think it says "fuck this shirt."
I mean, if you want to be PG, I mean, I guess it makes sense.
See, and then they go into what they're going to be doing with funding. Looks like when they do release it, it's going to be on both Steam and GOG. And let's see how they're doing so far. They're asking for 23,000 euros. They're at 16.5 thousand with 21 days to go. I think they're going to make it. Whether or not they get some of the crazier stretch goals, I'm not entirely sure. I would like to see them put out a demo. but I get the feeling that it might be a little bit too late to do that. Like if they were gonna release a demo, they would have done that already. So next, and this one, the developer behind it is gonna be visiting the Iron Frontier for 5th edition, which is going for a Gothic Western, which is an interesting approach.
Yeah.
Gothic steampunk Western world of Ama, saying, "The gods are dead, the heavens and hells are gone. All that remains of that time long before is man, beast, and the world of Ama. Without the influence of the divine, man has created many ingenious inventions. Walled, isolated megacities, prosthetics, engineering, and firearms. All of these technological advancements are made possible by archite, a mysterious mineral mined by the Grand Archite Bank. Outside the cities, the frontier spreads out farther than any one man can go. Towns are scattered throughout the frontier, made by those who wish to live a life without the rule of the bank or the organizations that rely on it. The price for anyone who wants to live by their own rules, though, is a life in constant danger, whether from beasts, rumored metal monsters, or the mist that carries the souls of the dead. Life on the frontier is often deadly. Welcome, partner, to the Iron Frontier." Which definitely sounds apropos. A little bit of Weird West going on here, which also means that I'd probably have to be a little bit harsher on what races I'd allow somebody to play. And yes, I said races, Wizards of the Coast, not lineages or whatever you want to call it this week. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Fuck them.
But the amount of times I say that, I feel like I'm turning into a white Tomatonga, or whiter.
No. You're thinking white bad luck Fale.
Yeah, bad luck Fale. Yeah. What am I thinking? I'm nowhere near as crazy as Tomatonga. But but it looks like they are putting in some new mechanics. Organization affiliation rules, which I'm perfectly in favor of, instead of using alignment. I've made it clear I'm not a fan of alignment. Although it looks like they aren't going with races either, but they're going with races in a way that makes sense, saying, "Why be an elf or a human when you can have a character with a custom lineage? New rules allow you to craft your character's genetic history without being bound to common fantasy presets." See, that actually makes more sense, especially if people have been huddled out in these giant cities for a while. Obviously, the racial lines are going to start getting a little blurry when you've got people huddled in one place for generations. Let's see. Then some new weapons regarding firearms, as well as the possibility of taking a feat and making your own, though you probably should keep that secret. I get the feeling that that it's only a matter of time when it comes to creating your own firearm that somebody tries to create the BFG. Which personally, I think that's a little bit too obvious. If I'm given custom rules, the weapon that I'd probably end up creating instead, the Noisy Cricket.
Oh yeah, folks, you know,
complete with blowback.
Yeah, the fucking it has to include the blowback at that point.
Or I could just make a gunblade to piss off anybody who is still a fan of Spoonie. Let's see, then new subclasses. So they're putting a new steampunk Western or Gothic subclass for every base class, whether it be Desperado Fighter or the Way of the Bullet Dancer Monk. That gives me ideas. Show of hands, who here has seen Equilibrium? Okay, okay, round 2. Who here has seen a John Woo movie?
I have. Ish.
Then I think you know where I'm going with this. That might be a future commission that I'd have to do. The monk the monk as a grammaton cleric.
Oh God. Oh God.
Let's see. Then new backgrounds, self-explanatory, new creatures, feats, a rule for prosthetics. I do have to wonder when it comes to prosthetics if they're going to be doing something akin to the. How do I want to put it? Do you remember the in games like Shadowrun, you couldn't do a full cyborg because you'd end up being a cyber zombie.
Oh God, yeah.
I have to wonder if they're going to take a similar approach. If somebody wants to go full cyborg, or everything but the head is a prosthetic. Let's see, then we have the world of Ama. So let's see, you have the organizations at the top. Sorry, at the bottom you have the mine workers. Above them are the organizations who use the material mined to make goods to sell. Above them are the people who funnel money into the organization's expeditions into the frontier. Then at the top you have Grand Archite Bank, and no one comes in and out of there aside from the bank tellers known as Mr. Gray. And out on the frontier, you have the Gilded, who stalk the night, and the Mist. So yeah, this is definitely a fantasy Wild West, but more leaning in the realm of Gothic horror than anything else. And it'll be interesting to delve into it because, like I said, in a few days I will be having the creator of it, Monarch Arts, onto the show. So we'll see how so I'll be able to get a little bit more detail on it. It's got a little ways, and I'm not going to give any predictions because I don't want to jinx. I mean, hell, I've already did enough jinxing when we did the NHL breakdown.
How's that season going, by the way? Ooh.
Well, look at that. We spent the we spent the we spent the tail end of January getting our ass kicked by the Mongolian horde.
Yeah.
And we are currently 6th in the West. Now, for the next one, Everway. Now, full disclosure: 1, I backed this. 2, I've had the creator, Jonathan Tweet, on the show, and you have no idea how big of a get that was. 3, he actually liked being on the show. But Everway is a very influential game for a lot of people, especially the indie scene. And for its 25th anniversary, they're bringing it. The Everway company is bringing it back, and doing a fair amount of cleanup with it as well. And the thing about Everway is the fact that it was designed to be a universal style game that relied on cards as a kind of cue rather than a on-off result. And once again, we have another case of being inspired by tarot, although it's not strictly a tarot deck like you've seen with Zodiac War. Instead, you have the fortune deck where you'd draw from it and then use the interpretation of the card that you drew to narrate the results. And a similar deck with the season deck. This is also where you have concepts like the three laws of action: karma, drama, and fortune. Karma being what should happen based on common sense and the character's abilities. Drama, what would make the best story to serve or increase dramatic tension. And fortune, well, drawing from the fortune deck. In a weird way, I consider something like Everway to be a lot better of a introduction to the idea of role playing, because instead of focusing on the rule sets, you focus on the act of playing a character itself. So I do recall using Everway to kind of break people in at least once, just on the idea of playing that character. That doesn't mean there aren't numbers to crunch. Obviously, there are. With the four element system that it has, as well as the use of powers and magic. The difference between the two is that powers, if a person would have some sort of natural effect that isn't from study or isn't from some external force, that would qualify as a power. So if somebody can do a little bit of telekinesis, that's a power. If somebody has to draw upon their years of study in order to move an object using Mage Hand, well, that's magic.
Makes sense.
And the fortune deck can also potentially be used for world creation through this little pyramid that they show with the fate, virtue, fault, past, present, and future. And once again, nothing is outright stated on the cards themselves, but it's more about interpreting what you see on them. That's why I say that this would be a lot easier of an introduction than people think. Everway only becomes hard when you carry certain assumptions about what an RPG can do, or what an RPG should be doing. And I backed at the $50 level to get the digital stuff, which was basically my go-in, so that later on, if I felt like it, I could grab the decks. And it looks like they are planning on adding the 95 edition as a separate add-on. But yeah, then we have the people involved with the thing. So we've got John Tweet, Richard Thames Rowan, and Jesse McGatha. And then some more on the matter. And let's see. So they were asking for 30,000. They're currently at 65.3 thousand with 19 days to go. And they apparently got full funding in 4 hours.
Sweet.
I mean, it's not too much of a surprise. This is what Everway for the longest time has been referred to as one of the best games that you're not playing. That's kind of the reputation that it's had, and it even though it originally was published by Wizards of the Coast, but it was published by Wizards of the Coast in 1995. Wizards of the Coast wouldn't get the rights to D&D until 2000.
Okay then.
So this isn't exactly fuck the WotC. Plus, it's being developed by the Everway company. So next, and if you listen close, you can hear Matt Wheaton and Misanthropic screaming in the background. Embryo Machine. We talked about this a while back, but the Kickstarter is finally up. They are at 15. They were asking for 15,000. They're at 37.7 thousand in a row.
Thank you, Monk.
You're welcome. Now, I should note, Lion Wing is not making this game. They are simply providing the localization for it. This game originally was made in Japan. And yes, it is a board game all about mechs. More about fast-paced mechs whose design reminds me of this, feels like this weird mix between Gundam and Armored Core. We obviously have example units on the demonstration of the unit board. Then two double-sided battlefield boards, as well as map joints, map bars, a set of cards that represent actions and equipment. Some add-ons. So yes, you can put wheels on your mech if you so wish to. Let's see. Then the unit standees. A round counter dial that decides to make it look like a 5-shooter. Cute. And a whole lot more going on. I'm gonna put this out right now. Oh, actually, spoke too soon. Let me. They have a demo.
Ooh, there we go.
On Tabletop Simulator.
Hey, that'll work.
So it's merely a demo, but hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Then we have stretch goals, and I always like it when stretch goals are put on a map like this. So funding, check. Mission mode plus first mission. A solo mode, interesting. A new map. A second mission added. New terrain. So the next one would be a new armor card, then a new weapon card, and then another new weapon card. And then some social goals. A soundtrack add-on, interesting. And apparently one of the add-ons that somebody could do is the files for 3D printing the mechs, which I would utilize if I had a 3D printer. But I do like that the mech does. Actually, I just realized another thing that the mech designs kind of remind me of, and this is going to be a deep ass cut. Are you familiar at all with 5-star stories?
Wow, that's a deep cut for me. Why, I do not know that.
The 5-star stories was a interesting take on mechs, and just to give an example, I'm going to put this for you in the council.
Beauty. Okay, I see it now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Then we get the final part of it. So yeah, I'm gonna be keeping a close eye on this. I can't back any board games for a while because I'm running out of room. I need to get some more shelves before I can do that.
You need a board game. You need a board room at that point.
Work in progress. So speaking of games whose creators I've had on the show, Kingdom Gun. I talked about this with you guys during the Tsunami call the other night. But yeah, they're clearly going for their own spin on Risk of Rain 1. Um, just going straight 2D. And when I had the devs on, one of the things that they mentioned that that they spent months upon end just getting movement right, because they felt that was going to be the most important thing with a game that's going to be as fast paced as this. And for whatever reason, I always have a soft spot for the visualization of a knight in full armor wielding a firearm. I don't know why.
I guess it's the appeal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I definitely can endorse their sprite work. Especially although I did ask them if Metal Slug was an inspiration for them, and they had said they've gotten that a lot, but no. But I think you can see why I'd make that comparison.
Yeah.
But no, they had cited Risk of Rain and Final Fantasy, specifically Final Fantasy I think 4 through 10 is their big visual inspirations. Although something I'm going to be curious about, and it's one of those things where I probably won't be able to really get a handle on it until the full game comes around. Is what are they doing to differentiate themselves from Risk of Rain? Aside from the fact that they're going with 2D instead of 3D, because well, obviously we know which route Risk of Rain took. But so they managed to get funded in 2 hours. They were asking for 15,000. They're currently at 23.3 thousand with 14 days to go. Not too shabby, I'd say. I get the feeling they're probably going to get about 26K by the end of it. But we will definitely see. And don't think I didn't see your little remark there, Planet Bound. And hopefully Discord didn't derp on me because or Maddie decided to go.
I hear you. I could hear. Yeah. I hear you.
All right. Now, next we talked about this a while back when the developers took down their Kickstarter because of poor timing. But the Gaia Complex is back, and it's actually managed to double its funding, to double its goal. They're asking for 5,000 euro. Well, okay, not double it, but it looked like that at when I did after the conversion. But they're asking for £5,000. They're at 7.4 thousand with 16 days to go. And obviously, Chris Shepperson, the creator, is somebody I've had on the show, and spoiler warning, he'll be back. And yeah, with something like this, we are doing cyberpunk and throwing in a bit of vampirism.
Nice.
And even though vampires have mostly fit in with human life, there are still outsiders. And no, you're not going to be playing as one. Something else that he's trying to focus on is this is not going to be a shrug a few bullet wounds off kind of approach with Cyberpunk. No, people are going to get shredded. And of course, they've had a quick start. They've had a quick start of the game up for a little while. Um, and he actually gave a proper name to his rule set called 1.2.3. The basis is that it uses 2d12s, which I do like the fact that he's as self-aware as the rest of us by saying that's two 12-sided dice, but you're all role players, so I'm sure you knew that. I see that we're slowly eroding away at the lonely D12 meme.
Catering at the market, why not?
Mm-hmm. So you're in this sort of setup. You're essentially trying to roll under your particular stat. And specifically whether or not the difficulty is more or less. I mean, if your stat is higher than the difficulty, you automatically pass.
That makes sense.
But if it's lower, then you roll 2d12, keeping a result that's equal or less than that relevant stat. An 11 is a fail, and a 12 is a botch. So, and you need one or both d12s to succeed, depending on whether or not you're skilled or unskilled. There's no skill ranks in this system. You're either skilled in something or you're not. If you're skilled in it, you only need one success. If you're unskilled, you can still make the roll, but you need both d12s to succeed. Now when it comes to damage, it uses d3s, which is basically a d6 cut in half. Although you can use the d3s that he provides if you want. I'm not going to say that I will. I'd probably just use a d6 and cut it in half because, well, that's what I did when I was running Dark Heresy. And it's mainly there to make sure that damage isn't as RNG-ish. There's a more stable like if somebody is rolling, it's a case of the fact that if you're rolling a set of d3s instead of one larger die, the larger die there's still at least a chance that you only get a little bit of damage. Whereas with this setup, you're gonna be taking a more consistent amount of damage. So thus you're not gonna be thinking, it's just a scratch. You're not gonna be the Black Knight. You know, 'tis but a scratch.
I'll scratch your arms off.
No, it isn't.
Yes, right there.
I've had worse. And of course this is the example of the D3s, which I don't know. It looks like I could use it to strum a guitar.
Quick, give that to Kyle O'Reilly. He'll air guitar the shit out.
I have no problem with that. And maybe he'll probably need it the next time he gets his ass kicked during war games. Yeah, I had to. And who's that handsome devil who's on this Kickstarter? Oh yeah, it's me. Although, and I'm probably gonna have to get on him for this later. He misspelled my name.
Oh yeah, that noob.
So, don't worry, I'll grill him about it later. So, speaking of campaign settings, one other that we have, and I will note that I did decide to back this, but when I approached them for doing an interview, they said that they're not comfortable with doing interviews. So, unfortunate, but it is what it is. Um, so so Crystal Punk is a campaign setting that is well aiming for Crystal Punk, going for a more of a Magitech approach, and it's one where it says it's set in a unique new world where spells, souls, demons, and infused crystals fuel brutal unique technology. And apparently they have an element of neo-noir, which is probably why they have a rain effect on that GIF. But yeah, they're going with dark fantasy meets cyberpunk. They have set up a Spotify playlist, and also having the setting described through a talk show called Reverb. And we have some character options, new races. I do like that even though Wizard of the Coast has been pushing for this whole lineages not races thing, the third party isn't paying them any attention.
Would you?
No. I mean, what can they do? What can they do about it? I'm using the Open Gaming license. Um, let's see. Then a new class with the Evolutionist, who is basically a augmented warrior. Some new subclasses for the neo-noir future. The Quick Draw archetype or the School of Infiltration, which is an arcane hacker. Let's see, then Magitech equipment and spells. Build your backstory with a few random tables. Magic fueled tech. Something like this does feel like Magipunk with a bit of the noir aspects that you'd see in Cyberpunk. In a weird way, it's kind of dipping into the same pool that Final Fantasy VII originally dipped into. At least that's how I interpreted the city of Midgard. Or rather, Midgar, not Midgard. Sorry, it's easy to get those mixed up when you have to add the D with a lot of Norse.
You're easily confused.
See, then apparently they're doing a digital book series called Crystal Punk Chronicles, and they've put out some of the material as play tests. Not too shabby. And let's see. So they are asking for 30,000 Australian. They're currently at 21.3 thousand with 20 days to go. I think that they're gonna make it. And yeah, full disclosure, I'm part of that group. Next, another case of something I had talked about. The creator of this, Scott Ulls, has been on the show. In fact, he ended up getting in contact with me before this thing even hit Kickstarter. Like out of the blue, he just sent me a message and then sent some research material to talk about this little project, Beta Red. And I will freely admit, when I saw the cover, I immediately asked, "Were you watching Akira?" That was the vibe I kept. That was the vibe I got at the start. But yeah, with Beta Red is leaning more towards a rules light kind of cyberpunk, with the fact that dice pools are small, and I believe we had mentioned that the reason for smaller dice pools, no Shadowrun pools, no pounds and pounds of D6s.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I chuckled.
Mm-hmm. But the approach that it's going is kind of similar to Tenra, in the sense that you are rolling the attribute, but you're looking for successes based on what die are equal to or lower than your skill rating. So for the example they give, somebody's trying to bribe a Yakuza boss. That requires 2 hits from the expression stat-based skill Subterfuge. So the character in this case has 5 expressions, so they roll 5 die. Their Subterfuge skill is 2, so anything that's a 1 or a 2 counts as a success. And 1s in this case explode. And let's see, the archetypes we have are humans, robots, psychics, and clones. And then we have a little bit more of the art. This was one of the rare cases of something that was in the Zine Quest project that's a little bit chunkier than what people would expect from Zine Quest, because this is going for a full-on book, whereas a lot of these Zine Quest books are only like 12 or so pages. But yeah, he managed to get it funded in 48 hours. He's got 13 days to go. He's got 13 days to go on the project. I think it's going to do pretty well. And the thing with Zine Quest is that because of the fact that they're low production projects, he's not going to need a whole lot. He only is asking for 1,500, and he's already past that. Next, and this is a case where I did back it because I think we've got something interesting here. Freelancer, Skies Over Tolindia. And so this launched a few days ago. They've got 25 days left. They're asking for 10,000 and they're at 7.7 thousand. And they opened the thing up with, "Join the Freelancer Corps today. Would you like to know more?" So and unlike the previous campaign setting that we talked about, this isn't a campaign setting for an established thing. This is a whole ball game in and of itself. So they're shooting for about 250 pages, and Freelancer is doing essentially magical diesel punk. In a weird way, it reminds me of Crimson Skies. I don't know why, but it says freelancers are non-magical mortals in a magical world where they must rely on skill, teamwork, and sheer willpower to triumph against odds. So yeah, the idea of playing in a world with magic, but you don't have magic, is certainly going to be interesting. And given the fact that you have humanoid-looking dogs, well, maybe you can use that to get to see if we can get a husky variant. Let's see. But freelancers have taken the training requirements to become a Knight of Tolindia. They take on contracts that are issued by various agencies, political factions, or public figures in order to maintain the balance of power and bring the corrupt to justice. Through skill at arms, guile, and courage, freelancers protect the people of Tolandia from those who would exploit them for their own gain. I get the feeling that some people might cry foul at the fact that you are not going to be using magic in this, but I'm perfectly fine with that. You have any idea how many fantasy games end up relying way too much on magic?
Too much?
Yes. It looks like they're using they said they're using a D10 die pool based on a character's skills, with skills growing through usage. Interesting. I wonder if this is going to be taking the RuneQuest approach. And they're not bound by level or class, so they're going a bit more freeform. Apparently they do want to have combat be tactical. I'll have to ask them on how they're going to do that. And they're making it very clear that they're going to be using they're going to be having some Roll20 support, although it's nice to see that they're going to be giving some kind of bone to people who have to do virtual tabletop these days. And then we have the tiers. I am curious if they have to see if they have some sort of quick start book. See, and then add-ons. Oh, and one of their partners is Draco Studios. I know those guys. I've had those guys on. In fact, we've talked about how about their sculpts. They do some awesome stuff. And lastly, Traveler is putting in the mercenary companies.
Ooh.
And it's a bit of interesting timing that this has to this gets brought up, because I have now reached the point where I've managed to get to 1,000 subs, which means I've got to pay the damn piper.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And I know that in some corner of the universe, Shades is laughing at the fact that I have to do this.
Yeah.
To that I say, it'll be your turn eventually.
Yeah.
All I have to do is wait.
Yep.
So Traveler obviously is one of the big guys on campus when it comes to space opera. Has been for decades. But for this new expansion, they are adding the mercenary companies. And this is not a one book expansion. This is basically a whole set in and of itself, with 3 books: Mercenaries in the Far Future, Running a Mercenary Force, and In the Field. And the writing for the first book, not the formatting, is pretty much done. In fact, some of the formatting is even done when it comes to the digital version of book 1. So, Mercenaries in the Far Future, well, it's using mercenary units, detailing how they operate and fight across environments and tech levels. The second book is Running a Mercenary Force, along with the 4 key resources: personnel, credits, material, and influence. And then In the Field, which is self-explanatory. Then we have the pledge levels and the Field Commander's Pack. See, and then we have the stretch goals, as well as some packages for some of their previous stuff. So yeah, I'm not surprised that this is doing so well. It's getting close to $100,000, or what they were asking for was £25,000. They're at getting real close to 70,000 with 3 weeks to go.
It's pretty good, actually.
Yes, it is.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So I ended up coming across this because somebody I'd had on the past had brought it up, but a new challenger is appearing when it comes to the realm of virtual tabletop, in the form of Shard. Now, they recently finished their Kickstarter, and right now they're solely focused on 5e support, which is the reason why I wasn't willing to back. Simply because of the fact that I don't. If they're just doing 5e, then that's not going to be of use to me.
What's up, guys?
Hey there, Coops.
Sorry I'm late. I literally just woke up from like the biggest nap of my life.
That's what you said last week.
Well, this is the second biggest nap of my life.
Close enough.
So,
Where are we at?
we were just finishing up with Shard Tabletop. It's a case of I will consider giving them a look if they eventually start supporting games other than 5e. If they're just supporting D&D, not interested. Because I'm going to be doing a whole lot more than just that, obviously.
Mm. There we go.
So next we have Dino World, a free RPG that recently released that is loosely inspired by the Dino Riders cartoon of the 80s.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so.
It's according to its itch.io page, it says Dino World is a TRPG inspired by Dino Riders, a toy line and cartoon from the 1980s. The game is a collision of Escape from Dino Island and Wander Home, with a sprinkle of extra sci-fi and a smidgen of Beast Wars. The reason why he's putting it up for free is this was just something that he whipped together for fun. But
Fair enough.
Since it and meanwhile, Planetbound in the chat is having a freak out moment. Okay, fine. Here's the link page. So no need for screaming.
Nah.
As soon as it actually gets posted.
Yeah, of course.
But the joke that although let's be honest, if we wanted to make this really nuts, I would run this, but instead of using Dino Riders as my reference, I would end up using Dino Saucers. Because the writers in that thing were completely out of their fucking mind.
Among other things. Yeah, my god, Dino Saucers. Jesus Christ, stop with my childhood.
But speaking of which, so the next bit of story was one that completely blew up my feed for about 3 days. So I'd have to discuss it, and that is Magpie Games has inked a deal to do a role-playing game based on Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. I will only be using half of this book. You can figure out which half I'm going to be using.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I have a very strict no Mary Sue's policy here in my temple. They dirty up the place.
All right.
They do. They fucking do.
So, Magpie Games has secured a multi-year licensing agreement to produce a TRPG set in Avatar. And there hasn't been a whole lot of detail as far as what systems that they're going to be working with. I am having to raise my eyebrow with them saying we're also thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Asian designers like James Mendez Hodes to bring the world of Avatar Aang and Avatar Korra in a way that's true to the authentic, diverse spirit of both shows.
Translation, we're about to fuck it right the fuck up.
I'd like to hope that this is just marketing speak, but here's the thing that I have to say.
You know exactly why I did that joke, because part of it is fucking true.
Mm-hmm. But For me, what's going to be the deciding factor is what system they use. If they use their own in-house thing, great. I might actually give that a chance. If they use Powered by the Apocalypse, which they've done with Bluebeard's Bride and Masks, no. Mostly because I've already seen that done. Legend of the Elements did that a few years ago, and that's the problem. Fans have done much like with Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Fans have done plenty of adaptations into multiple systems. And to be honest with something like this, if they use Powered by the Apocalypse or Fate, I feel like that's a wasted opportunity. Much in the same way that I was told. You want to know the reason why when that Henshin RPG was brought up, I never used that for the Rider project. It would have been too limiting, and it would have been a case of I wouldn't be able to work with what I wanted to do. Because even though it calls itself a tokusatsu RPG, and for all intents and purposes, it's just a Power Rangers RPG. But when it comes to something like this, I can see I can see a game designer having the temptation to use Powered by the Apocalypse because of how benders work. I hope to God that's not what ends up happening. So I'll be keeping a close eye, and all I have to say is, don't fuck up. Like Magpie is a decent developer, but since they're doing it, I have a tiny bit of hope that we won't be seeing D&D meets Avatar. Because that would fucking suck. Also, I've done it before. Twice. I did it with 3.5 and I did it with 4th edition. There's probably somebody who did it with 5th edition. I didn't. So, another project that's being in develop is referred to as RAM, which essentially which for the time being is a single-page document that contains links to musical cues that they could use to help add a little bit more music to RPGs. I probably won't use it because I already have my own set of playlists, but it's certainly an interesting thing. Next, something that people have been telling me I really need to look into, and don't worry, it's in the queue. Upwind, which has been out for a while from Nocturnal Media and Biohazard Games, is getting some official publication by Chaosium. I feel like this is part of the deal where Stuart Wex's Nocturnal Media label ended up getting acquired by Chaosium, and thus Chaosium gets to publish their stuff. The source book for it, The Prophecy of the Grand Amplifier, is also going to be available. Upwind is described by its creators as, quote, "Imagine Bakshi's classic animated film Wizards had a head-on collision with Treasure Planet, and the resulting fire is put out with a whole lot of Castle in the Sky. That, in an unexpected animated mashup, is Upwind." I'm certainly glad they didn't call it Updog. Yeah, that was terrible, and I feel terrible. Wait, no, I don't.
Of course you don't.
So, now the next one I ended up getting because of the fact that I bought a copy of Cortex Prime. I ended up getting wind of this for a while. So, a while back we talked about the fact that the Dragon Prince was getting a tabletop RPG adaptation. Well, the playtest version of that has already been out for anybody who got a copy of Cortex Prime, which includes myself. And they are they are working closely with the studio behind the Dragon Prince's animation, Wonderstorm. Um, and fortunately, because of the fact that it's being handled by Fandom, that means it's using Cortex Prime, not D&D. You have no idea how much I felt like we dodged a bullet by the fact that this isn't being converted into D&D's rule set, because I could easily see someone making that argument that because it's a fantasy game, it should be using a fantasy system instead of a universal one.
Right.
But fortunately, that isn't the case, and Cortex Prime is a far more flexible system, anyways. Now, next, White Lies, for those who want to do a better 007 than the 007 that got delayed again. Look, I have no optimism when it comes to No Time to Die.
Yeah.
And I honestly think it's at a point where a new Bond is needed. And hell, I'd say a staff shakeup is needed at MGM as well, because they seem to be suffering from the identity crisis again. It's not the first time this kind of thing has happened.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole identity crisis thing, this has been a problem for decades. I'd say it seemed like they had some idea of a new identity or a new direction that they could take Bond, but they could never stick with it. That being how well GoldenEye was, instead of with something like GoldenEye, first off, I like Brosnan as Bond. I think he did a good job with what he was given.
Yeah.
Second, GoldenEye presented Bond as a man out of time. And while obviously something like that is going to have a relatively short shelf life, the Bond films after that felt like it was trying to be the Connery era.
They were trying the Connery. They were going, what if Connery was in the modern context? I'm like, no. Oh wait, you're still talking about Brosnan? Because Brosnan's movies were fine.
Yeah, I
mean, all but Die Another Day, which fucking sucked, thanks to Bandana, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah. In fact, if I were to compare Die Another Day to any other Bond film, I'd compare it to Moonraker. Not exactly good company to be in.
Apt.
But that is Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough are fine Bond films. But
dude, not gonna lie, Tomorrow Never Dies. Low key, one of my favorite flicks. Mm-hmm. Not guilty pleasure, if you want to call it that, but good. Mm-hmm. I liked it.
But I think you can see where I'm going with this. That that for most of Brosnan's era, they were trying to be Connery. Instead of letting Brosnan take the character in his own way. And with Daniel Craig,
I think Brosnan was just happy to be James Bond.
Yeah, with Daniel Craig, they've had a different problem where they're trying to bring in elements of Jason Bourne, and it's not sticking.
The thing about the Bond movies, when they started with Connery, they were as close as you could get with the Ian Fleming novels, mm-hmm. but they are always victim of the times. Like they want to keep Bond relevant. They didn't have to with Connery's movies in general, because they were the cause of, they were it. But when the space movies came in, they were like, okay, we got Roger Moore. Hey, what's hip to these stuff? They want more comedy? Okay, more comedy. Oh, okay, the big space wars. I get it, Space Wars with Bond, and that's how we got Moonraker, folks. He couldn't even fucking kill Jaws. Anyway, that's still a gripe on my end. In the 80s, they saw things getting a very 80s action, a very 80s action. The rogue agent with a heart of gold kind of stuff. That's actually both of Timothy Dalton's movies in general. And I think Dalton's underrated, but that's another story for another day. And then they tried to reboot Bond with Bronson, and GoldenEye, you said before, it's a man out of time because, well, the Civil War fucking ended. That's the big thing. After that, they just went, okay, we've reestablished Bond. What can we do? Bond versus the media. Bond versus nuclear weapons, but with terrorism in there. Bond versus good taste. Wait. That's I know the day. You get the idea here, right? And then with Daniel Craig, they saw the gritty reboots, like the realistic reboots, and went, that's the next step. It kind of worked with the first three movies. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I mean, Casino Royale was okay. We couldn't do Casino Royale in the beginning, so let's do Casino Royale now. But with a little bit more realism. But they stripped away what made a Bond movie. That was a big sacrifice. That was a big turnoff for a lot of people. Quantum of Solace is the reason why we don't have direct sequels. Oh, they'll bring up a few things in some movies, but each movie before the Daniel Craig series, except for maybe one exception, was its own standalone movie, in a sense. Let's see, where am I? Skyfall.
Skyfall, I liked.
Skyfall was okay. Let's just bring it back to what we like about Bond. But wait, Judi Dench doesn't want to do movies anymore. Shall we give her a send off? Shall we murder her M? Okay, let's throw in an Aston Martin. And we liked it because, okay, it's probably one of the better Craig movies. It's probably the best Daniel Craig movie so far. I have yet to see Spectre because I saw what was going on. I'm like, yeah, not my bag anymore. The classic stuff.
But anyway, the reason I point all this kind of thing out is DWD Studios has put out the entire line for White Lies, which is their OSR themed Bond game, up on DriveThruRPG for free. It is a heavily modified version of the white box system used by Swords and Wizardry, and instead going with a different approach. In this case, the player characters are members of Bureau 19, referencing a secret 19th power in the American Constitution to create an agency outside the military's scope to protect the country. And the theme that they have with it is a game about doing bad things for good reasons. And given the cover, it's pretty clear that they aim more for Bond than Bourne. Well, of course they aim more for Bond because, well, you can actually see what's going on. Yeah, I fucking hate shaky cam.
There are only a few people who could do shaky cam right. None of them are in Hollywood.
So next, one thing that we had covered a while back was Weird Frontiers. This idea of Call of Cthulhu meets the Weird West. But because of the fact that it's standalone, they ended up getting a letter from Chaosium and asked them to change the name. So instead of going with Weird Frontiers, they're just calling it Dark Trails. The reason why this is important is because of the fact that their version isn't using the Chaosium basic rule set. It's instead using Dungeon Crawl Classics rules. And I think people looked at the cover, the original cover that they had with Weird Frontiers, which wish they had kept that artwork. That's nice. Instead they decided to go with dark trails so that nobody is confused. And the creators, Stiff Whiskers, are taking it in stride. And when they're asked, should I be pissed at Chaosium? Absolutely not. I've tried very hard to keep the peace with Chaosium since this all began, and I've never spoken out against them on social media. If anything, I have tried to keep the peace with friends who are also longtime big supporters of Chaosium who are aware of the issue. He's basically taking a live and let live attitude. So it's nice of him.
Well, better live than live and let die at that point.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. So remember last year when we talked about how there was a legal fight between Wizards of the Coast and Gale Force 9? It looks like that's been settled, where the two sides have agreed to mutually back off from legal proceedings. And in the process, Wizards of the Coast will not, right now, cancel their contract. Because up until this point, they had been contracted with doing European translations of D&D. But then all of a sudden they decided to cancel the contract, not tell them why, and then slag one of their associate groups as having bad quality. So of course Gale Force 9 sued for $1 million, but it looks like both sides have decided to back off. See, Wizards of the Coast, people can be a lot more reasonable if you stop chest thumping. Like just let people do the job you're paying them to do, and everybody's going to be happy. I think the other reason they probably decided that both sides probably decided to back off is because of the fact that if they continued with this, then Wizards of the Coast would have to find another translator, and they wouldn't be able to fight a war on two fronts. But still, unfortunately, this means that the only people who won in this case were the lawyers, because they still got paid their retainer, even if the lawsuit never happens.
Yeah.
Wow.
But speaking of Chaosium, one of the originators with RuneQuest is coming back. The old board game White Bear and Red Moon, which I have never played, but I have heard of a long time. Because this was basically the patient zero for the Glorantha campaign setting. And how far back does this go? 1966. A decade before D&D came out.
That was when my mom was born. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, let me correct myself. He started work on the Glorantha setting in '66. The first board game with it, which was its origins, White Bear and Red Moon, came out in '75, and then re-released with the name Dragon Pass.
Okay.
There was a digital release of Nomad Gods, which was a spiritual follow-up, but there's been but that was as far as the trail went. Then last month, Chaosium tweeted a picture of the team playing a new-looking version of White Bear and Red Moon. And now it's been confirmed that both that and Nomad Gods would be returning. So it means that people will actually get a chance to try out the classic.
That's good.
It'll probably play like a 70s Avalon Hill war game. Not that I'm complaining about that. So next we have the fact that Asmodee Games, who has been on a bit of a tear when it comes to acquisitions lately, has recently snapped up Board Game Arena, a site where you can play a bunch of different board games, and it's available in dozens of languages. They had managed to take their user base in 2020 to 5 million players. And now Asmodee has bought Board Game Arena. Now, apparently they're going to be keeping their current management and pricing won't change for now. You have to forgive me if I'm a little bit suspicious if that's going to stick.
I don't blame you.
Mm-hmm. And even so, I still have the concern that that Asmodee is stretching themselves a little bit thin. But next we have a little bit of something from Netflix. A proper release date for Pacific Rim: The Black. Specifically, March 4th, which is possibly the best time that you can announce something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's set in the same universe as the two films, although the original is better. Rising is all right, but it gets a little bit too goofy at times. And the whole thing of the fused kaiju was pushing it a little bit. But even so, I'm it looks like it's being produced by Polygon Pictures and Legendary Pictures. Um,
Something.
I'm not familiar with those two.
um, the way it ends up looking reminds me of a bit of the Godzilla anime trilogy, and I'm hoping it's better than that.
It's giving me a bit of a Genlock vibe to it as well. It's small vibe though.
At the very least, if it's giving you a Genlock vibe, at the very least, then we're getting mech action from a company that that actually has a budget.
Very least, of course.
Mm-hmm. Look, I got nothing against Genlock, but I can't imagine that thing came cheap. Another thing that we're getting that's being co-produced by Funimation is Mars Red. Um, Essentially, we have vampires coexisting with humanity up until 1923, but the number of vampires is increasing while the supply of and the use of a artificial blood called Askra is a likely cause. So we are dealing with vampires hunting vampires because, well, we haven't had this kind of thing in a while since, I don't know, Blood Plus, or rather Blood C.
Let's see. But it looks interesting.
I'm trying to see who's. So this has been. So the manga has been in publication since 2013, and the anime is going to be coming out this April.
Ooh, 2 months from now. Nice.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say, I love the coats. But of course, I'd love the coat.
Pretty much anything with vampires, they always got to have a badass coat.
And they do have some of the old Blood Plus staff on hand for this project.
In that case, we're in good hands.
Mm-hmm. Animation is being done by Signal.md. I'm not familiar with that studio. Although it's interesting that this is the second anime that we've talked about that takes place during the Taisho era. Because another anime that took place in the Taisho era is the one that's been blowing up sales for the last couple of years. Demon Slayer.
Well, that goes without saying.
Something else that we ended up getting when it comes to alternate history Japan is Revenge, Juran the Princess of Snow and Blood. Apparently this is during the 64th year of Emperor Meiji, and when Yoshinobu Tokugawa did not relinquish power. So we're dealing with a revenge story that's doing the whole futuristic but feudal with a mix of modern tech and Edo-era culture.
Not gonna lie, I read the title. I almost thought it spelled my government name for a bit.
That's why you have two eyes.
I know.
But when it comes to this one, it's starting in Japan in April, first on Nippon TV, then BS and CSNTC before being picked up by Hulu Japan. No remarks on an English version. We'll probably be seeing it in English a little bit later on in the year.
Yeah.
I always like when there's an attempt to do woodblock style approach with animation. But unfortunately it doesn't say what the I'm trying to see if I can it doesn't say what studio is working on it. Although I would not be surprised at all if I found out that Bones was working on it. This definitely seems like something they would do. But then, well, this is a case of me pandering to Akira. So you know how we talked about how Netflix was teasing the idea of doing a Sonic series? Well,
And
now
how
it's
it was-
confirmed.
And we also talked about how it was already giving us a serious case of bad mojo.
Sonic Prime, which will premiere in 2022, is being produced by Sega, Wildbrain, and Man of Action. They're shooting for 24 episodes. It's going to be animated at Wildbrain's Vancouver studio, and it will be a joint participation between Sega and Wildbrain.
Cool.
And the rest of the material in the press release is a case of fluff. But I will admit that the line that does have me tilt my head is this: Sonic's adventure is about more than a race to save the universe. It's a journey of self-discovery and redemption.
Which again, I'm already getting bad vibes from this one.
I'm not going to write it off just yet. That's not my policy.
I mean, neither will I. At this point, I'm cautiously optimistic, though at the same time putting my distance against it.
Mm-hmm. Now, well, I'll be a little more confident in whether or not I'm going to write it off or not once we get an actual trailer, and I suspect we're going to see one in fall 2021.
Yeah.
But now it's time for us to do our favorite game of Let's Laugh at the Stadia.
Wait. I thought that shit was done. I thought they were done, but no.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back
Pull
in.
me back in.
So, Stadia has decided to shut down their in-house studio when it came to game development. which was referred to as Stadia Games and Stadia Games and Entertainment. And they are focusing more on being a platform. Ultimately, this means that they are not going to be producing any Stadia exclusive games for the foreseeable future. And that is going to be an even bigger death blow for something that's already on life support as it is.
They're fucked.
Now one of the community managers did have to clarify that the games that somebody purchased aren't going to be going anywhere, and wish I could see how many upvotes or downvotes the thing is getting, but it just says 1.1K. But I do think this comment from Ravenlock is apropos here. Google, I know you all knew this was going to be poorly received, but I don't know if you knew how poorly. To have this news hit after a couple months of the only good press Stadia ever got is really, really not great. The promise of Stadia was games that could only happen in the cloud, not just everybody else's games running at best as good or slightly worse than on the competition. As a founder, I have plenty of stuff I'm still actively playing and enjoying on the platform. I'm not going anywhere, but it's hard to see how this doesn't trigger a massive wave of told you so negative press and make user retention a nightmare. Everything Google has said publicly for the last year, in very rare instances they've chosen to say anything outside a blog post at all, has been 100% committed to the message of long-term, confident investment in this platform. And a lot of us bought that because, you're Google. You have the money. You did the R&D. You hired Jade Raymond. I think you just lost a lot of credibility right in the knees, folks.
Well said.
And
do we need to say anything more than that?
But wait, it gets better.
Uh-oh.
Then there was the Terraria incident this week. So because of, for whatever reason, the creator of Terraria got locked out of his Google accounts, all of his Google accounts, he made a public announcement saying that he is canceling the Stadia port of Terraria.
Wow. Wow. Customer service win. Not for the creator, but for Google. They should have helped them.
And I do have to correct myself. This Andrew Spinks is the co-creator who this happened to. And it seemed like this was imminent because it had passed through Peggy and probably passed through ESRB as well, but was never officially announced. It was probably going to be in one of the This Week on Stadia posts. Well, that's no longer happening, since Andrew Spinks, the co-creator of Terraria, announced his decision on Twitter to start off the week. He explains that his personal Google account has been locked out for about 3 weeks now, leaving him unable to access his Gmail account of 15 years, thousands of dollars in Google Play app/movie purchases, and all his data on Drive. The trouble started with YouTube when the Terraria YouTube channel was locked. Spinks claims he has done nothing to violate terms of service, leading to the decision to pull Terraria from Stadia entirely. The project has been canceled, and Spinks further says that his company will no longer support any of Google's platforms going forward, saying that doing business with Google is a liability.
Ooh.
It is still available on the Play Store for both Android and Android TV, as well as being a part of Play Pass at this time. And apparently there was a bit of an update saying the folks over at Stadia Source got in touch with the studio behind Terraria to get a bit more context on the situation, as well as to confirm the co-creator's tweets. In the lengthy statement below, the studio confirms that the Stadia port of Terraria, as well as future projects from the company, will not be launching on Google platforms, but the current version of the game available on Android is not being pulled. And I'm not reading all of that. But yeah, maybe not a good idea to piss someone off when it comes to the whole customer service thing, especially when they're working on something that's probably going to make you money, because Terraria is still a big it still has a big footprint when it comes to indie gaming. And oddly enough, is a game I could see being reasonably played on a Stadia without too much lag, because it's not a twitchy game. But nope, you had to screw the pooch and be Google, so fuck you. In the words of Bad Luck Fale, fuck 'em.
Yep, yep.
Fuck 'em.
So next there was this little thing. One of the recent one of Yoshi P's recent reveal things for Final Fantasy XIV brought in the new expansion Endwalker. And well, first off, in each of these expansions, we've had a class change for the Warrior of Light. With jobs matching the themes. With Shadowbringers, it was Dark Knight. With Stormblood, it was Monk and Samurai, and with Heavensward, it was Dragoon. Now it's Paladin, and we're going to a full other world. And the developers are planning on this 6.0 release being the end of the current saga, as in the story of Hydaline and Zodiark that's been explored over the past decade. But that doesn't mean that the game's ending. It's just that when 6.1 comes around, it's a new adventure. And there were a few things that were announced. One, a new class with the Sage, so we're getting another healer. Who focuses on barriers and shielding effects. And it's divided into two categories: pure healers who regenerate lost HP, and barrier healers who focus on shielding from damage. Because of this distinction, the Astrologian job will be reworked as a pure healer. Personally, it's not going to mean that much to me because I don't really play healers all that often. I tend to play DPSs or tanks. They will be introducing another job that'll be a melee DPS, but there's a lot of to the moon with this, especially the fact that they made one giant reference to the lunar whale from Final Fantasy IV. So keep doing you, because I ended up finding out through a financial report that the sole reason that Square didn't lose as much money as they could have is because of that being offset through the recent ports with Nier Automata, and the recent crossover stuff with that, or rather the port of Nier Replicant, and Final Fantasy XIV offset the cost, but given how Avengers turned out, I get the feeling that Square won't be working with Marvel anytime soon. Especially given how much money they lost, and it could have been a lot worse. Speaking of things that can always get worse, we actually have some gameplay footage when it comes to Starship Troopers Terran Command. Would you like to know more?
Yes.
Look, it's Starship Troopers. I had to make the joke. And I'm surprised. Slytherin Games usually doesn't do games that look this nice, but it's good to see some actual gameplay footage on how it's going to work. And because of the setup, I had initially thought that I was going to be dealing with a Starship Troopers version of They Are Billions. With the footage that they're showing, it seems that's not exactly the case. This feels like a proper RTS instead of pure defense. Now that being said, it's not like it. There's still going to be what you'd expect from the mobile infantry, and they're also, I know that they are going to be bringing in the armored infantry, which is something that the movie never touched on. But yeah, it will be another bug hunt.
Game over, man. Game over.
Um, we also got a bit of an update on Windjammers 2, where they are overhauling their arcade mode. Have you ever heard of Windjammer? You know what a Windjammer sounds like? The agonizing screams of a trapped turd.
God damn, I love wrestling sometimes.
But yeah, and I'll be honest. I appreciate the fact that .emu is going this far to ensure quality. And I do like the approach that they have with this city like vibe for the game itself. I want to see this thing in tournaments.
Oh, that's gonna happen. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. And apparently they're adding a disc attack mode, which will be particularly nail biting, I'd imagine.
I would imagine so as well, actually.
So we also have the fact that Chris Tales will be launching this July, which we've talked about a couple times. That has a interesting setup of being able to see past, present, and future all at once. And yeah, they've outright admitted that Chrono Trigger was an influence, although when it comes to gameplay, I'd say that's not the case. Although I do have to say I do like their I do like the art style that they have with the thing. In a weird way, it kind of reminds me of Child of Light. Just a lot more colorful. And that's saying something because Child of Light is a pretty colorful game.
Yeah.
Now the demo has been out for a while, and I am interested in the fact that they instead of having past, present, and future be essentially separate maps, it's a lot more freeform in terms of integrating time travel into the gameplay mechanics themselves. That's kind of the reason why I always get annoyed whenever people use Chrono Trigger as the benchmark for a time travel RPG, because there's other ways that you can do it that game doesn't.
All right.
And given the fact that one of the companions is a frog, maybe I can maybe I can pressure Lady K into streaming the game.
Oh God. You may need to propose that to John. He might tease the lady with that.
I will consider that. Next, we have apparently Slytherin is making another crack at a 40K game with Battle Sector. And interestingly, although it seems that the approach that they're going is Space Marines versus Tyranids. Hopefully there will be some other races. I'm not used to Slytherin having this level of production value in their stuff. Oh, and it looks like we'll be dealing with the Blood Angels, since I see the Black Company. They're going turn-based. Hopefully they don't make. Hopefully they. Although the question I have to ask is, how can you do fast-paced and turn-based at the same time? That seems a little bit contradictory.
A little bit.
Now, as far as the look of what I'd expect from 40K, they certainly have that down pat. Not surprising because this isn't their first time doing it. Although looking at the trailer, it just makes me think. We really need another full-on action game using the 40K license. I know that Dark Tide's coming, but I want a Space Marine 2, damn it. Let's see, and then they also showed a bit of a gameplay reveal. So let's see if we can get a bit of footage on that. Oh yeah, I forgot that Slytherin was responsible for that Battlestar Galactica game that outlasted the show that it was based on. But let's. Okay, so it looks like they're going for a grid approach. Trying to see if I can. The use of the flags there, for whatever reason, was reminding me of Total War. But a big problem that I find myself having is Warhammer and Warhammer 40K have done more than their fair share of strategy game entries over the years, and I feel like it's high time that it started dipping into other genres more. But I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this because Slytherin does have a good track record to their name. But next, in a case of something I completely didn't see coming, and I only found out about it thanks to Ace, not Spade Ace, another Ace that I follow. Does anybody remember the game that never was, known as 6 Days in Fallujah?
Never heard of it.
This was a game that was going to be developed in the early 2000s. That was based on the battle for Fallujah during the Iraq War. But after a bit of controversy because people took the wrong idea with the game, the publisher at the time, Konami, pulled out, and the game was seen as dead. Well, apparently not, because not only has it managed to come back with a new publisher, new developer, and many of the core leadership team coming back, as well as some people who have a Halo and Destiny pedigree. It is apparently going to be slated for release later this year. And
Cool.
some journalists got really pissed that this was going to be coming about, making all the usual buzzwords. And one thing that I find really funny is that they said that it would be more respectful for you to play as a civilian trying to survive the thing, and saying that maybe they should have done that. Except when you look at the description, let me see if I can find the thing. Let's see. Geez, I can't seem to find it at the moment, but it outright stated that one of the chapters that they have planned is a stealth mission where you're playing as a civilian. So, it's a good idea to actually do some research before you spout your mouth off, especially if you're supposed to be a journalist.
Oh, okay.
And once again, I seem to be a better journalist than game journalists.
Well,
Are we sure that's still a high bar to cross now?
Yeah, not really. Another case of release dates that was announced was for King's Bounty 2, which is coming to us from 1C Entertainment and Koch Media. The King's Bounty series has been one of those that's been around for a while, but nobody really gives its due. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Heroes of Might and Magic, especially with the fact that it's doing hex-based skirmishes. but this was supposed to come out in March, but now it's being moved to August 24th. 12 days after my birthday. It's kind of funny that for as long as King's Bounty has been around, this is the first proper sequel. Up until this point, they've been doing a bunch of expansion pack stuff. But for all intents and purposes, it feels like Heroes in Might and Magic just actually good looking, because, well, when 3DO was bought up by Ubisoft, they took Might and Magic and ended up making it look like a DeviantArt page. But hey, I'm glad to see it show up, and I'll probably end up grabbing it, because I do remember liking some of the stuff for King's Bounty I saw previously, but it looks like for this too, it's effectively them doing a soft reboot. So we'll see. We also ended up getting a new gameplay trailer for R-Type Final 2, which I gotta point out how ridiculous that name is. Like, I don't think you should really add "final" into the title of your product unless it really
Dude, it
really
barely
is.
works for Final Fantasy, guy. That's not gonna work.
Well, let's also bring up Final Fight. I think the only time it really did work was Gao Gaigar Final. Wait, no, it didn't, because then there was the Grand Glorious Gathering version of that. So. But hey, I like side-scrolling shooties, so I'm not gonna be complaining. And this looks like what I'd expect from an R-Type. Plus, it's a way to do a rail shooter that isn't going to make me concentrate with my face inches away from the fucking screen like a Toho game.
True.
I got nothing against Toho Project, but you know how it is. And it looks like they have a proper release date for April 30th. Next we ended up getting a update for Godhood, which I had previously not heard of. A God game. So I wonder if this is the game that Dan Carotto plays in his spare time. But you play as a newborn deity trying to establish their own religion of one of multiple avenues, whether it be lust, chastity, war, peace, greed, generosity, or madness. Recruit disciples and guide them by issuing tenets and traditions that they can spread across the world. Well, we're not going to get a black and white 3, so I guess this is as close as we can get.
Probably.
Defeat followers of rival gods in ritualistic auto-battler combat to convert new believers. Update 1.2 adds the ability to excommunicate disciples that displease you, the martial arts and Monastery of Miracles traditions, the reclusion and pain is gain tenets, and a major revamp to classes. Pain is gain. What are all your tenants gym rats? That'd be funny. That'd be funny as hell. The cleric who is who. Oh God! You want to know what's in my head right now?
What?
To purify you up, we wish to pump you up.
You up? Oh God!
We've already had muscle wizards. Why not muscle clerics?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the muscle cleric.
So next it looks like we're getting, I guess because somebody wanted to take a crack at, since Rise Son of Rome ended up dropping the ball. Somebody wants to take a crack at doing a action game involving Legionnaires. So now we have We Are Legion. Basically you're joining the Roman Legion as a commander and doing what you'd expect. At the very least, I appreciate that it's not trying to sugarcoat how brutal it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it looks like you are a member of the 10th Legion. I kind of wish we had a full action game that focused on the mystery of the 9th Legion. But now, unfortunately, all we have right now is just a teaser. We'll probably have some actual gameplay footage later on in the year. But what I'm curious about is the fact that they're calling this an action RPG, but where does it go with the action and where does it go with the RPG? I'd like to hope the vision that I have in my head, and this probably isn't going to be the case, is you're never fighting alone. You're always fighting with you're always fighting with a retinue at your side, and a lot of the commands are about formations and getting people into different positions. At least that's the approach I'd like to take with it, where victory is through a combined whole. And if I'm pretty sure somebody's saying, so you just basically want a Roman version of Republic Commando. Yes. Yes. Because we haven't had that, and I'm sure as hell not going to get Brothers in Arms anytime soon. Thanks, Randy.
Nope. Oh.
Because Brothers in Arms was one of my favorite squad-based shooters, and that was created through Gearbox.
Oh.
Yeah. Some wounds never heal. But speaking of that, R-Type Final 2 isn't the only rail shooter that we have in the docket. The other one we have is Natsuki Chronicles, which is apparently getting a PS4 port. And it's also going to be coming to Steam. Apparently this is a spin-off to Ginga Force, which I haven't played, but maybe I should.
Kind of reminds me of Asterbreed a little bit, only without the mechs.
The only thing that the problem is you're not having three different types of attacks, so I can't even compare it to Ether Vapor, the predecessor to Asterbreed.
Yeah.
No, this feels like what I'd expect from a typical rail shooter. I'd say if anything, it's probably got more in common with Gradius.
I can see that.
Although it's currently available for the Xbone, it's probably when it gets ported to Steam, that's going to be, as well as PS4, that's going to be a worldwide release, I'd imagine.
Most likely will.
And at the very least, this is a case of a game that I could play without having to squint at the screen to make the tiniest of adjustments to my ship. There are Toho games that I like, I swear.
Sure.
Well, I liked Luna Knights, which is more of a Metroidvania with Toho characters, so not exactly.
That doesn't count.
Next, we have a case of a game that this I should be slogging it for the rhyming in its name. Scarlet Hood and the Wicked Wood.
They should have changed the end names for both of them. It'd be the Scarlet Wood and the Wicked Hood.
This isn't taking place in Chicago.
Though I wish it did.
But yeah, it was originally slated to enter early access in February 10th, but instead it's going to forgo early access completely to launch on April 8th.
Hmm.
Although this looks to be more of a puzzle game than anything else, because apparently you're dealing with a narrative time loop. So I can't say that this would be high up on my list, because despite I don't mind puzzles in other games, but puzzles in a strictly puzzle-based game, I don't have a whole lot of those. And yeah, Portal 1 and 2 are among the ones that are in the library, but not much else. Much for the same reason that I have no interest in any hidden object game. But last but not least, and this was one that had me happy in my head place, Total War Warhammer 3.
Ooh.
On one hand, it's good to see the story continuing. On the other hand, they're going to try and fuck me on the DLC again, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
What I do know is that we're heading north. We're heading towards Kislev, which is Warhammer's version of Imperial Russia. And the thing is, Kislev is far closer to the chaos vortex in the North Pole, and because of that, they have to deal with chaos a lot more than the rest of the old world does.
Hmm.
And because of the setup that they have, there's also the fact that all 4 Chaos Gods are going to be messing about. As is plainly obvious by them showing all four of them: Nurgle, Slanesh, Tzeentch, and Khorne.
Yep.
And the thing that I'm curious about is whether or not they're going to be making any improvements to Warsmith, or whether even they're going to bring in the duel mechanic that was in Total War 3 Kingdoms. But what I'm really afraid of is that they're going to do that whole blood and gore DLC, so they can sneak in a lower age rating. Because they've done that before. But hey, it's another case where we get to head north to have our fun, or rather, return to our natural habitat, right, Maddie?
Yeah. Habitat, yes. Still doesn't feel natural. Gotta wait a couple months for it to feel natural.
Mm-hmm. But that is going to do it for this particular episode of the Gazette. Next week we've got a fair few fun things. I of course have plenty of interviews lined up. Some of which are going to be dealing with time zones, some of which not. And of course, we've got Geek Watch tomorrow. And that is going to be where the fun begins, cuz I think you'll like what we've got in store. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking front.